Good morning, and shit, what day is it?
You should know, you've been counting.
I know, but I forget every morning.
Do you know something funny from this morning?
Always.
I tried to wake you up at like 8:30.
Yeah.
I was literally shaking.
I don't think so.
I was. And I was trying to get you awake, and you just weren't moving, nothing. And I was like, the thought that just came to me was, are you even alive? So I checked your pulse.
No, you did not.
I did.
I really want to stay in bed, but I can't because yesterday I lost his house key. So as punishment, I now have to get up and go get a key cut with him so that I can actually leave the house today. I literally have not filmed anything today because I have been sitting there on the sofa literally almost all day. I came back from the key cutting place with Adam, and then I did some washing, put the washing away, did a little bit of tidying, made the bed, had a shower, did my hair and makeup, and then put a hoodie on, sat on the couch and had a nap. And I've been watching The Watcher. So I don't really have anything to like edit today, so I thought that I would do a quick video while there's still some daylight and talk a little bit about the process of getting diagnosed with ADHD. I will just get right into it. This is probably either going to be very, very helpful and informative, or a really, really, really big ramble with no explanations and not helpful at all. There's not really going to be an in-between. It will be one or the other, so I'm terribly sorry if it's the latter. Honestly, I do not understand how my parents did not get me tested for ADHD and autism when I was a child, because of the amount of behaviours that I had or projected or whatever is honestly unreal. My younger brother, who's 4 years younger than me, he was diagnosed with ADHD when he was really young. I think he was like 7 or 8 maybe, and the reason he got diagnosed and I didn't is because I love my mum and dad so much, I really do, and this is not in any way hate on my mum and dad at all. The reason my brother got diagnosed and I didn't is because I was the good child, I suppose. I didn't really cause any disruptions in school. I didn't really misbehave. I wasn't very naughty, whereas my younger brother was very, very hyperactive. He would throw himself off of walls and stuff, and he was extremely naughty. So he got all of the attention, I guess, in terms of his behaviour being monitored, whereas I just kind of got ignored. Not ignored in a sense that my parents ignored me, but ignored in a sense that they didn't feel like they had to do anything for me in the way they had to do things for my brother, if that makes sense. Growing up with undiagnosed ADHD and autism in a household with a brother who has diagnosed ADHD was extremely difficult, because my mum and dad would often tell me to be the bigger person, or you know what your brother's like, he's got ADHD, just ignore him, or he wouldn't get punished as much for things because it would be easier to let him get away with it because punishing him was too difficult, or you know, he wouldn't listen. And I didn't get that same kind of treatment. I got, you know, if I got grounded, I was grounded, that was it. If my brother got grounded, half an hour later, he was allowed out again. And so when I would get frustrated and when I would get upset with anything that was going on at home or at school or with friends, which I never had friends growing up, I could not keep friends. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to properly socialise. I didn't know the best way to communicate with people, and it was really difficult for me to do that. And whenever I did do that, I was told I was doing it wrong, or I was told my personality wasn't right, and it was really difficult to navigate the world of friends and maintaining relationships with people. I would often get compared to other people as well, by my parents and stuff, not in a really horrible way or anything like that, but it was just a case of why don't you act more like this, or you know, the reason people don't like you is because you're like this. And it was hard. I would get compared to my cousin, for example, who lived next door, and we got on relatively well, and she was a lot more independent than me in terms of, well, I don't actually know, to be honest, because I feel like I was quite independent, but not independent enough so that it would be like, oh, why can't you be more like this person because they're the same age as you and they're doing this, this, this and this. And I was like, in my head it would really upset me and hurt me a lot, because I was like, I don't know why I'm not like that. I don't know why I'm not like that. I'm just not. So then I would have to like try and change and mold my personality to fit and be more like the people around me, the people in my family, the people I went to school with. And I guess that's sort of how I learned to mask and try and hide a lot of the traits that I had. And going back to, this video is going to be full of like jumping from one story to another, because it's too difficult for me to just stick to one story all the way through. So if you don't have ADHD and you're not autistic and you don't want long-winded explanations, this video is just not for you because it's gonna be a mess, and I'm gonna leave it a mess because that's just how my brain works. Going back to how like growing up was difficult when my brother was diagnosed and I wasn't, because he would get the benefit of the doubt because of his diagnosis, whereas I would never get the benefit of the doubt because I wasn't diagnosed with anything. And it wasn't a case of, oh, maybe you feel like this because you've got ADHD, or oh, maybe we should help you deal with your emotions, or blah blah blah. I was just labelled a crybaby. I was labelled overly sensitive. I cared too much about what people thought. I cried too much. I was not good enough at socialising. I was not like blah blah blah. These were just personality traits that I had that were just my personality. And it wasn't ever looked at as something to be concerned about, even though I spent the entirety of my like young life being bullied and having to have time off school because I was being bullied, constantly going to the teachers because I was being bullied, and I didn't understand why I was being bullied. I didn't understand why people didn't like me. I didn't understand what was going on. I loved school because I love learning, but I hated school for the environment because I couldn't learn in that environment, and then I would be made to feel stupid because I didn't understand something, or I would get told off for asking questions because the questions I were asking I wasn't supposed to ask, but I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to ask these questions, and I would then just not ask questions during lessons. So then I didn't understand what was going on, but I couldn't ask and I couldn't say I didn't know what was going on, because then the teachers would mock you, and then after the teachers mock you, the students mock you, and it's like, I'm already being bullied. I don't really want to be mocked for not understanding what's going on, or not understanding why you're doing the lesson this way, because I can't learn this way. I didn't understand why I was constantly forgetting things that people were telling me. My mum and dad would go mad at me all the time as well, because I would constantly lose things like my house keys or my phone or umbrella. And my mum is watching this. I'm so sorry for the amount of umbrellas that I have lost. And my mum she would just refuse to lend me her umbrellas anymore because I would just lose them all. I don't know why I was losing them. I didn't understand why I was losing them. I would get shouted at a lot growing up, and I would just cry immediately. I do not deal well with being shouted at. I didn't understand a lot of the time why I was being shouted at, and I didn't understand my own feelings, so I would just cry, and then I wouldn't be given the opportunity to express how I was feeling or say what I was feeling, because then that was called backchat, or like that would just make the person yelling at me more angry and then yell at me more and then send me to my room crying. And then I would go upstairs and I would honestly, like, I don't know if my parents know this, so, but every single time that I would get yelled at and I would be made to feel like an inadequate human because I couldn't explain to the person yelling at me what was wrong, or tell them like, I do not understand why you are yelling at me, for them to tell me that they're not yelling at me when they were yelling at me. Like, I'm not being given the opportunity to tell you how I'm feeling. I'm not being given an opportunity to express myself. I was never given a space that was comfortable enough for me to feel safe enough to explain what was going on in my head, because I just thought, I'm not normal, I'm being yelled at, I'm doing something wrong, I'm a terrible human, oh my goodness, why can't I be more like everybody else, blah 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 blah. And then I would finish getting yelled at, and I would totter off upstairs, and I would go into my bedroom, and I would just like pull my hair out, and I would like smack myself, and I'd hit myself in the head, and I would just be sobbing and crying and physically hurting myself because I didn't know what to do. I had all of this like feeling in my body of just something. I don't know what the feeling was, and I didn't know how to get it out, and that's how I would get it out. And later on in my life, this developed into different forms of self-harm. Like, I've had issues with food since I was about 9-10 years old. I've had multiple eating disorders for what I'm still in recovery for, which the majority of people who watch this video who follow me will know, because that'll be kind of the main reason that people followed me in the first place. I'm doing very, very well in my recovery at the minute. But yeah, that all kind of links in to me being an undiagnosed ADHD autistic person. I would also take things super, super literally, and it would get on people's nerves a lot, and I would get labelled an idiot, labelled gullible, labelled stupid, laughed at, mocked, and it was hurtful, but I just kind of laughed along with people because I was like, haha, yeah, I'm gullible, haha. Not understanding what they meant. I'm like, well, if you tell me something, I think what you're telling me is real, because why would it not be? One example I always remember is my mum, and when she told me once, when my dad yells at me, to just not listen. When he's yelling at you, just don't listen to him. And I said, okay. So the next time I got yelled at, I didn't listen. And then I got yelled at more when he asked me to repeat what he just said to me, and I was like, well, I wasn't listening. And then that just made it worse. And I said to my mum, like, you told me not to listen. And she was like, well, I didn't mean don't listen, I meant just don't listen. What? What does that mean? I don't know. So, like, if you're telling me not to listen, I'm not gonna listen. And it was at that moment I realised people kind of say things but mean something different, and I had a lot of learning to do with that, and it took a lot for me to realise that a lot of times people don't actually mean what they say, and there's like hidden meanings to things people are saying, and you have to kind of decode what they're saying and things like that. And growing up in a household with people who tend to lose their temper quite quickly and often and get frustrated easily, I am hyper vigilant to tonal changes and like body language and things like that, which I don't think I would be if I didn't grow up in that kind of environment. But because of that, I now get super, super paranoid if anybody's tone changes even a little bit when they talk to me, because I'm like, what have I done? I'm so sorry. And then it just goes into this whole thing. But on the flip side of that, I do not understand tone and tonal changes. I feel like I have a very expressive voice, and an expressive, like, I move my hands a lot and my face is very expressive when I talk, and I don't actually know if that's natural or not, because I've done it since I was younger to express to people how I'm feeling, because otherwise I would be very, like, I was always asked, if I was to just be like normal, I would be asked what was the matter. Like, what's up with you? Why are you being like this? Why are you so boring? Why are you so moody? Why are you so this, that and the other? So it was like, right, okay, I'm not, but now I need to act in a certain way to make you think that I'm not. Okay, cool. So then this is what I've done forever. But I don't not do it now. I just do it all the time. And I'm not sure if it's habit or if this is just how I actually am. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It could be to do with my ADHD, and it could not be. Like, I'm not entirely sure where that comes from. I was also told growing up, I talk way too fast. You know, slow down when you're speaking, take a breath. People would talk to me, like my mum's friends or like customers in the shop where she worked would be talking to me, and then I'd respond, and they'd look at my mum and be like, what? And they didn't understand what I'd said because I was speaking too fast. So that was an issue I had a lot as well. This was about how I got diagnosed, but I'm kind of just telling you my life story, so I guess that's what we're doing. I have a lot of different traits and stuff. Like, when I was younger, the way that I would play would be to line things up, make a list, tick it off, make a different line, make a different list, tick it off. And it would just be, I just love making lists and ticking things off. Other things that I struggled with as a child, which makes it really difficult as an adult to figure out kind of who you are as a person, is, you know, struggling with relationships, but struggling with your likes and dislikes, because they would just change constantly, and I'd be able to hyper focus on something and I'd be like, this is the most amazing thing ever, I love this so much, and then I would get bored of it and not want to do it anymore. And the amount of clubs that I joined and quit because I just couldn't be bothered anymore, and I didn't understand why I couldn't be bothered with it, why I can't stick at a club, why do I enjoy it one day and then not at the next. Obviously now I know why, is because I have ADHD, but at the time it was just, why do you not do any clubs, why do you not have any hobbies, why do you not do this, why do you not do that? And I don't know, I can't answer that question, I have no idea. So I never really had any hobbies, or I didn't have a lot of interests, I didn't have a lot of friends, and it just made like life really difficult because I spent a lot of it alone, and it was just hard growing up, not understanding myself, not understanding why people didn't like me, not understanding why I didn't feel and think the same way other people did, not having anybody to talk to, not feeling like I could turn to anyone because I didn't understand, other people didn't understand, and people were just mean to me, then being bullied throughout school for being different, for being the way I am, for God knows what reasons I was bullied for. Like, I don't even understand to this day, I don't understand why people bullied me in school. I will never understand like what I did to make me an easy target, other than try and be nice to people and try and get along with people. And the people that I would try and hang out with, like I would try and like mold my personality to fit into the group so that I would be accepted and I would be loved as a friend, and it just never happened, like ever. Every single friend group I have ever been a part of, I have been that disposable friend that nobody really goes to unless they're a last resort. I have always been that in a friend group. I specifically remember one time in school, this is so sad that I like this incident itself is like burned into my brain, and I to this day still feel hurt about it, and at the time I just like smiled and laughed it off as if it was nothing. I am 28 years old and it still hurts. But we were stood, there was me and the group of people that I hung out with, my friends, and we'd gone out a couple of nights before, and they were like, oh, we'll set you up with this boy, blah blah blah, and they got me a boyfriend or whatever, and then made like a huge joke about when he broke up with me, that we were playing a game, we all had to like hide or something, I can't remember what game I was playing, and then when I was like alone, hidden with somebody else, they all just stood in a group and just like shouted, like, he doesn't love you anymore, he don't like you, you dumped. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna go, cool. And then after that happened, we was stood where we hung out in school down the bottom of these stairs, and they were talking, some of the friends were talking amongst themselves about what they did that night, last night, and how they went out and how they did this, blah blah blah. And I remember just being like, that's so weird, because I asked if we was going out and you said no, that you was busy, and then they just laughed and just carried on talking and making plans to go out again that night, completely excluded me. And yeah, that felt bad, that felt not good. And it was then that I realised that they were not my friends, that I didn't have any friends, and that people just didn't like me. And I still don't know why. I just still to this day do not know what I did to them to make them just not like me, because I can't comprehend what is socially acceptable and stuff like that. So I would just act how they were acting, or like try and fit in and things like that. I had a really tough time in school, and anyone who knew me in high school will probably say that I didn't, because I didn't feel like safe enough to talk to people because I didn't have anyone, and learned to not talk to people about how you're feeling and what's going on, because nobody cares, nobody else feels this way. I'm just weird and odd and dumb and stupid and different and alone. And I would go home and I would self-harm and I would cry and I would just feel alone at home because I had nobody to talk to about how I was feeling, because I didn't even know how I was feeling. This whole cycle of just not understanding anything just carried on my entire life. Not understanding why I can't keep relationships, not understanding why I can't maintain friendships, not understanding why I don't have hobbies. And then COVID hit and my routine was disrupted greatly, and I got very, very poorly mentally, and it was not good. And it was at this point that I started questioning things. I'd seen videos of people on TikTok and stuff talking about ADHD and autism, and I was like, oh my god, that sounds like me, but I'm nothing like my brother, so I don't have that. And that's just what I would think. I'm not like my brother, therefore I don't have it. And I had this image in my head of what ADHD was, and it just was not what I actually thought it was. And when I tell you I did so much research, I did, oh my god, all day, every day, for weeks and weeks, just researching ADHD and autism, and just thinking like, oh my goodness. Like at this point, I'd been diagnosed with PTSD, OCD, BPD, chronic depression, and anxiety. I truly do not relate to anything more than ADHD and autism. And when I was looking into it and doing all this research, it was honestly like a friggin' light bulb just went off in my head, and then suddenly my entire life made sense. A weird feeling of both ecstatic and happy, like, oh my god, this is me, this is me, this is me, and also grief and sadness for the life that I have had when it could have been amazing, or at least better. And I've struggled for all of my life for no reason, all because I was just not diagnosed and given the help and the tools to survive in a world that wasn't built for me at a younger age. When I was diagnosed with BPD, I was like, yeah, that fits, because I resonate with a lot of the symptoms that they were listing off. So I just kind of like went with that diagnosis for years. I was never given medication, I was never given help, I was never given anything after this diagnosis. And the main reason they diagnosed me was because of my second attempt, and I ended up in a mental health facility where I stayed for a bit because I was obviously considered a danger to myself. I understood why they gave me the diagnosis of BPD. However, all of the symptoms that they said that I had are literally ADHD and autism, and I just didn't think anything of that. But the traits that I do not have, which you need to have to be diagnosed BPD, are not traits of ADHD and autism. What a weird coincidence. So yeah, that was that whole thing. I feel like I've gone on so many tangents and I don't actually remember the point that I was trying to make. Yeah, so at the beginning of lockdown, or around the beginning, yeah, like mid 2020, I went to my GP and I said, you know, something's not right. Something isn't right. I'm just not computing life correctly. I think I may have ADHD and I think I'm also autistic. And I had a book filled with the research I'd done, with all of this information I had, like, I think this is me, this is all the traits that I have, blah blah blah. Were they helpful? Not particularly. They gave me a referral for a diagnosis and said that the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they ask me a few questions, because I need to meet the criteria in order to be even given a referral. And I was like, that's completely fine, are we going to do that now? And they was like, no, I'll give you a call. I don't understand why they couldn't just do it there and then and make the referral there and then. I don't know. They called me about 2 weeks later and just said, this is just about your referral, I need to ask you some questions. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And the questions they asked were, do you get distracted easily? Do you find it hard to maintain friendships? And do you find it hard to sit still? Do you fidget a lot? The way that they worded the questions, they're not like yes or no questions, but they want a yes or no answer. So it's really difficult, especially when it's, oh, do you find it hard to sit still? And it's though you're like powered by an engine or like done by a motor or whatever the bloody thing is. And I'm like, well, no, I can sit down and sit still. But then when you really think about it, you're like, actually, no, I can't sit down and sit still, and I do want to get up and move, because I'm constantly moving my hands, I'm constantly moving my legs, I'll be playing with my hair, I'll be moving seats, like just to get comfy and changing positions. I'm not physically getting up and walking around in a circle, but I am not sitting still. So yeah, I do find it hard to sit still. I will fidget, I will move. Do you find that you lose focus? And I said, yeah, I do find it hard to maintain my focus. And at the end of the conversation, they was like, right, you've got enough answers. I don't think you've got ADHD, but you've got enough on the answers, so I'll make the referral. I was like, right, okay. Are you also referring me for autism? Oh, we'll get to that bridge. Okay, okay. You know what I was doing now? So I'm not sure if they made the referral or not. I then received a call a few months later from the ADHD team, the exact same questionnaire. Over the phone, they was like, we just need you to answer these questions. Asked me them, I answered them, and they were like, right, just so you know, you are being referred. And like, it's been like three or 4 months. I know I'm being referred. I've already done this questionnaire. I was like, yeah, we just have to make sure. That's fine. Like, you'll get an appointment in the next couple of months. I then received a letter for an appointment in December. This appointment came round, and I was so excited for this appointment. I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait. They're going to ring me. I'm going to get my assessment and I'm going to get diagnosed. I'm going to get help. It's going to be amazing. They rang me literally just to tell me that I was on the waiting list. I know I'm on the waiting list. I've been on the waiting list for over a year. What was the point of this phone call? I have been waiting for this phone call. I then got another phone call with yet another questionnaire. It was similar to the last one, but just a lot longer, just required a lot more detail. And they actually giggled. They said, oh, well, I assume you probably already know that you highly likelihood you have ADHD. So then I was put forward for the full assessment, which is where I did get diagnosed and prescribed medication, and I was diagnosed, if you didn't know, with combined ADHD. No one is worse than the other. If you've got ADHD, you've got ADHD, whether you've got combined or not, it does not matter. And I was like, brilliant. Do you also do the autism assessment? I had no idea what I was talking about. I was like, no, you get the autism assessment here, but you've not been referred for that. I was like, I asked for it when I had my referral for ADHD. Oh, you'll have to go back to your GP. I was like, okay. I then did go back to my GP to ask them about the autism assessment, and they was like, oh yeah, it says here that you've been referred, but no one referred you. Right, so I've been waiting a year. Now, it's now 2 years, and you've only just referred me. Do you have ADHD? So I've been waiting for 2 years for my autism assessment and literally heard nothing. Not a single peep. I am constantly chasing it up. And then I figured out that the Right to Choose, Psychiatry UK, actually offer autism assessment as well as ADHD, because I did ask for an ADHD assessment with them and my doctor actually refused and said it's better to just wait for the NHS, and I was like, whatever, it's fine. So I've asked my GP about being referred via Psychiatry UK, via the Right to Choose, and I've been told, oh, I've never heard of that, what's that? So I'd explained to them, sent them links, sent them emails. No, we don't offer that. Are you in the UK? Yes. Are you the NHS? Yes. You do offer this. Free of charge. You do offer it. All the GP has to do is literally sign this pre-written letter. I have already filled out the questionnaire. All you have to do is sign this letter. We'll get back to you. Emailed again, and they said, if you're that desperate, just pay for private. Why can't you just sign the letter and refer me via Psychiatry UK from the Right to Choose? Why can't you do that? We're gonna have a meeting next week and we'll get back to you. Okay. I emailed again. Still not heard anything. Am I being referred? We don't know if we offer this service. There is a fee. No, there's not. Why are you lying? So yeah, I don't know what's happening with my autism referral, if I'm being completely honest. I've been on an imaginary wait list for over 2 years because they didn't refer me when they said that they did. And I'm not sure if they've referred me now or not, because I've heard absolutely squat. And they're refusing to refer me via Psychiatry UK, which is literally just a 2-week wait. If I could afford to pay private, I think it's like £800, I literally would. I would pay private. I just want this whole process to be over, and it's infuriating. It's just such a difficult process. I bet I've been talking. I wonder actually how long I've been talking for. I have been talking for over an hour. Half of this footage that of me talking is going to be completely unusable because it's just rambling. I will do a proper video eventually about the diagnosis process. I don't know. I'll do a video on the diagnosis thing when I remember, and I'll make notes and it'll actually be informative. And if you want to know more about growing up with undiagnosed ADHD and autism and how things sucked but sometimes didn't suck, then just let me know and I will. That's that, I guess.